you go down the pub, if they're not talking about the football, they're talking about Harry. And just, you know, we don't want you here because it just causes too much fuss.
Hi all, welcome to Royally Unfiltered, the show that takes you behind palace gates like never before. Today, joining me is the host of Royals Uncensored, Katie Nicholl. Thank you so much for being here, Katie. And the ever-handsome Cameron Walker, GB News' royal correspondent. I've got a dream team here today, and we've got some breaking news that we're going to start with. Cameron, I watched you covering this early this morning. Walk me through this timeline. Buckingham Palace, this is where Prince Harry's staying. Oh wait, just kidding, not where Prince Harry's staying.
Isn't this a complete circus?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this show, but I'm going to anyway. It's been a complete show. This whole day has been absolutely insane. So what happened was I was told by somebody very close to Harry that he has accepted the King's kind offer to stay at Buckingham Palace. We then go to Buckingham Palace saying, well, they've told us this, so what do you say about it? But it was good sourcing, you know. I wouldn't say it. It was also
early in the morning.
It was early in the morning. It was about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. And, it was decent sourcing. It was somebody who I really trust. And I thought, you know what, we can go with this. So we went with it, put out the story that Harry was going to stay at Buckingham Palace and he'd be arriving earlier today. Other outlets then ran the same story, having had it subsequently confirmed. Then Buckingham Palace gets in touch and says, hold your horses, Prince Harry isn't staying. The reason being is because Harry formally declined that invitation on Saturday morning. Then later on in the day, Buckingham Palace says, he changed his mind and said, no, I am going to stay in Buckingham Palace, thank you very much. Then Buckingham Palace wrote back saying, it's too late, because logistically it's quite hard to get all the staffing in place, get all the, well, they said hosting or the hospitality, I think they mean food and drink and things, ready for his arrival and a couple of other logistical things. And Harry, for whatever reason, either didn't receive the message or read the message. Now, the palace sources insist that he was absolutely told categorically on Saturday evening that he would not be allowed to stay in Buckingham Palace. And then, of course, we've got into this really awful situation where we're being briefed and counter-briefed from both sides, and Harry's camp are hurling allegations against Buckingham Palace as to the reasons why he suddenly isn't allowed to stay in Buckingham Palace, alleging that they were trying to cause as much embarrassment to Prince Harry as possible. I think the palace are denying that pretty categorically and saying this clearly is a bit of a miscommunication.
Katie, the Buckingham Palace is not a Holiday Inn. You know, wouldn't you think that Prince Harry would need to give them a reasonable amount of time to prepare for such a big stay? When Harry comes, the cameras are parked outside. Harry knows this, they know this. This is unfair for Harry at the very last minute to go, just kidding, my bags are outside the door, I'm ready to come in, knock, knock, knock.
Well, I mean, to use Cameron's phrase, the whole thing has been a total show from start to finish. And I haven't even said that on Uncensored, but you're absolutely right, it has. But what I did say was that it is also the height of bad manners. You have got your father, the king, who's got enough on his plate, quite frankly, bending over backwards to accommodate you and your family, giving you a choice of royal accommodation where you can stay and, by the way, where you will be protected by round-the-clock security, Harry's beef. Okay, it ticks all the boxes. This offer has been on the table for a matter of weeks, and yet no response from Harry. And so, to your point, Kinsey, should he have known better? Shouldn't he have known how much time needs to go into giving a heads up so that everything can be in place? Of course he does. And I think at the end of the day, this has been a mess of his own making. And many times over the years, I have felt sympathy for Harry. I really have. And on a human level, I would very much like this reconciliation to happen for the king, because I think life is short. He's going through cancer. He wants to see his grandchildren and he can't. And yet you feel he has done everything. He has been magnanimous in terms of showing forgiveness, in terms of making it possible. And yet Harry has somehow managed to mess it all up. And it's astonishing.
Yeah, I will attest to this. And I've said this on my show before. You have been very generous with Prince Harry, and I've been very disappointed in his actions towards you. So we'll leave it at that. Cameron, I have said, or I did say it at the beginning of this, that I felt like Harry was setting the palace up to continue to pit them as the villains in this story. And then watching the way this is all unfolded today, watching you on GB News, watching you jump on Instagram and be like, behind the scenes, this is what's going on, it kind of solidified that feeling that Harry wanted to not get what he wanted so that he could go, look, I'm still the spare. I'm still the rejected son. My father doesn't love me. And then we're being briefed from the Daily Mail that Harry might bring the kids because they've been so excited about coming to the UK, which positions him as like father of the year, taking care of his brood while his dad doesn't take care of him. Have you felt the sense at all while you've been covering this that perhaps this was a setup to try to reposition Harry as the victim?
Do you know, I don't think Harry blames his father at all, and I know for a fact that both of them are actually in regular contact. Who I do think Harry does blame is the men in grey suits.
You're wearing a grey suit. That's very bold of you to say this. I promise you, I'm not a grey
man in a grey suit. I think, and Harry has such a hatred towards certain individuals who work for the royal household that arguably sometimes it blinds and clouds his judgment a little bit. And he has it in his head that they are out to get him and that everything is against them. I think probably what happened is that Harry was expecting this security review, which he says he was promised to take place. And that review would be so damning in terms of all these threats against him. This is what Harry's own security team is saying. I'll caveat by saying that the Home Office will simply be forced to pay taxpayers' money to give him police protection because there's too many threats against him. Then they can all be happy families living in the palace. That didn't materialise. And I think that's when the conversation started getting heated as to where Harry was going to stay. Because, as you say, Harry was given the option a few weeks ago to stay within a royal residence when he's in the UK, and it took until Saturday morning for him to say no, and then Saturday afternoon for him to say yes. I mean, it's cutting it fine.
But it makes me feel, Cameron, and I think you're very generous, and I think you're very fair in your opinion on it all, but it makes me feel that there has been an agenda by Harry the whole way in all of this to force his father's hand, to try and get the king to intervene over the matter of security. I mean, he's jumped the gun. Why just assume, just because you haven't had the results of a review, that it's going to go your way? I mean, that's a pretty big assumption to make when you've been through the courts and the courts of appeal for no less than 5 years. Oh, well, just because we haven't heard means we're going to get it. No. 2 and 2 don't make 6. That's not right. And this has been Harry's problem from the outset.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of assumptions and a lot of entitlement, perhaps, sometimes on his part. He would clearly, I'm just going to give the other point of view, but he would say that he needs that security to keep his family safe. But again, it's such a fine balance. And at the end of the day, the king cannot be put in a position where he is forced by his youngest son to force the Home Office to give him security.
But he is able to have that, and I think this is so important for everyone watching, that he is able to have the security he wants by staying at a royal residence. Archie and Lily would be so safe at Buckingham Palace, at Windsor, at Sandringham, up in Scotland, wherever they chose to go, the king would have made that possible.
But his team did release a statement saying that they wanted to move around and that they were limited.
I'm sorry, but you can't do that because of who you are in line to the succession, because it would make things too complicated. And so sometimes we all have to learn in life to make a compromise. And I think if he was that genuine about wanting his father to spend time with his grandchildren, there is nothing wrong with Buckingham Palace and the gardens of Buckingham Palace, and they would be safe. Travel around the States, which is where you chose to move your life to and live. I'm sorry, but you cannot have your cake and eat it, and that's Harry's problem.
Well, to your point that you made earlier to me in the makeup room, to try to do the business and pleasure visit, to try to market this as a reconciliation tour while also having responsibilities towards some very important charities in the UK.
Yeah, which, by the way, none of us are talking about.
No.
Right.
Because all we're talking
Very
about
fair
is
point.
security.
Yeah.
I'm
Exactly.
sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, how does that make these charities feel? If you read Tom Bower's Betrayal, he goes into great detail how Senabale felt like it became the Harry and Meghan circus.
And look how that ended up.
Exactly. They're currently suing Prince Harry for defamation, and they were disappointed because the story became about Harry and Meghan, and they lost donors because people were turned off by Harry and Meghan. And I'm looking at Invictus, and it feels like I'm watching the same story unfold. And I have heard that leadership at Invictus is concerned about this. How would you advise them? I mean, this was not properly marketed. This should have been an Invictus
To be honest,
trip.
it wouldn't matter how I advise the Sussexes or Kinsey, how you advise them, or indeed you. And actually, we'd all be quite well placed because we've been in this industry for a very long time. They don't listen.
Yeah.
They don't listen to the advice they're given. You speak to their old advisors. They threw their hands up in the air in despair because they just didn't listen. I'm afraid they write the rules themselves. They expect it all to go their way. And when it doesn't, they play the victim card in it all.
Do you know, if I was PR for either Invictus, World Childs or Scottish Little Soldiers, I would be pretty annoyed that at the start of this week, the whole thing is being overshadowed by not only a security row, but now even where he's lying down and putting his head at night. It just seems to, if I was them, I'd think it would be really, really upsetting, actually. The whole thing is being overshadowed. And if I was Prince Harry, I'd look at myself and think, you look at the opinion polls of the British public's opinion of members of the royal family. Harry and Meghan are at the bottom, apart from Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. When Harry starts getting a bit of an uptick, it's when he's talking about the Invictus Games. It's when he's championing veterans. It's when he's supporting young children who's lost their parents through armed conflict. It's when he's supporting children who are very, very ill indeed. But we're not talking about that. When the public really dislike Harry and when his opinion goes down about him, it's when he is complaining again about the hand he was dealt as a member of the royal family, about security and about where he's staying. There's a cost of living crisis in this country. Turning down an opportunity to stay in Buckingham Palace and then getting annoyed that certain things haven't gone your way, I don't think it's going to wash with the British public.
I don't. I mean, if you go down the pub, if they're not talking about the football, they're talking about Harry. And just, we don't want you here because it just causes too much fuss. And you think not that long ago, he was at the top of the popularity polls.
Yes. Yeah, only 5 years or so.
Yeah, wow. Well, I need to ask before we move on about Project Thaw. I mean, I'm off and on about it. Sometimes somebody will say to me, well, don't you think it's interesting that the king Prince Harry gave this speech and then days later the king gave a similar speech? And I go, yeah, that is kind of weird unless he's intentionally copying his father. But I look at what happened today, Katie, and I say, there's no way in hell that the palace is trying to slowly move this guy back into a working royal.
Oh, I mean, Kinsey, I've said this. I get asked about this all the time. Is he going to come back as a working royal? Will there be engagements? For the record, no. It simply isn't going to happen. And there's a major reason for that. It's William. It's not going to happen. The Prince of Wales is not going to say, well, all is forgiven. Come back, Harry. Do you know what? We're a bit thin on the ground right now. Come back and help us out with some engagements. Absolutely not. Those bridges have been well and truly burned. And I think it would just be far too complicated in other matters as well. And I think Harry actually quite likes his life in California. I think they're very happy. The kids are happy over there.
Do you really think that, though, watching the way he's
I don't think he's a happy man at the moment.
Yeah.
I don't think he's happy. I think he'd be happy if he could, to repeat myself, have his cake and eat it. So live his life
half in, half
California.
Out.
Exactly.
Yeah,
half in, half out. Come back when he wants, give the 28 days notice, but get the full-on protection. That might be 2 or 3 visits a year. What is that? 300,000, 400,000 pounds of protection? As Cameron says, we're in a cost of living crisis. This is not what the British public want from their royals. What they want from their working royals is duty before self, getting on with the job, doing it with a smile, because, gosh, with the transience and flux of our politics, we need it.
I'm actually quite disappointed because I think this time a year ago, to your original question, Kinsey, about Project Thaw, I thought Harry had changed tactics here and he was really going to pursue charity work, particularly in September when he came across. And the whole thing, again, is just gone backwards almost, where we are just continually rowing between Buckingham Palace and his own team. It's just a shame.
I spoke to sources at the palace very close to the king, and he said they have their heads in their hands in despair. Because whatever Harry wants to think about those palace men in grey, a lot of them tried to really facilitate this. A lot of them went above and beyond to make this happen. And it hasn't. And I'm sorry, I don't think those Palisades or the King are to blame. I think it's Harry.
And one of the Palisades said to me this morning, despite all of this, the invitation in the future is still open for Meghan, the two children, and Harry to stay in a royal residence. They're rising above it all.
I mean, that
still.
shows grace, doesn't it? That's the door still, after all of this, still being left ajar.
Right, because Harry's team responded kind of annoyed, saying that they were disappointed that this offer had been rescinded, which can we look up the definition of that? You said no. You know, the door was closed then. But I want to ask, Katie, you mentioned the 28 days. Listening to Cameron talk about the, tit for tat, Saturday he calls and says no, Saturday he calls back and says yes. Do you believe that he's comfortable with the 28 days notice when it comes to Ravic's security, or do you think it's a control issue where they don't like giving the palace or whoever, Ravic, a complete itinerary a month ahead because they are so controlling when it comes to information that they believe might be leaked about their lives?
Well, do you know what? I think had they not been bringing the family and convoluting official with personal on this tour, I don't think there would have been an issue. You know, as Cameron says, they're putting the spotlight on Wellchild, on Invictus, on important charity initiatives. I don't think the plan has ever been to block Harry from doing that. But, if Harry hasn't learned that he can't overturn the system, that the rules are there because they're there and you have to abide by them, then more for him. I mean, it's 28 days. I don't think that's unfair. It's not just him that has to make applications. Everybody does.
Have you seen the theories online that Harry was hoping that the king would step in this time? Because if he had proof that he was in jeopardy, he's put together this report himself. He was hoping that the king would, make a phone call and everything would work out in his favor, that then internationally he would receive this kind of security. Have you heard those theories? Do you buy into those theories that there was a bigger plan here for him to get this blanket security, internationally?
I don't think the best strategy, if you believe your life is in danger because of terror plots against you, is to put it out in the open. And that is what he has instructed his team to do, clearly. I think the other point to make is that the reason Harry is so annoyed about this whole 28 days notice and give to the Home Office to provide some level of protection, the level of protection he gets is a police liaison telephone number to a police liaison officer. And the point that his team always makes to me is if someone was running at him with a knife, for example, it's quicker to dial 999 than this police liaison number, which is why he's so annoyed about it. Nonetheless, it comes back to the central point here that he is no longer a working member of the royal family, and therefore Ravic decided 5 years ago that he is not entitled to taxpayer-funded security because it costs so much money, as we've been discussing, Katie.
And it's been reviewed as well. So obviously, despite Harry's security report carried out by his own people, they're an intelligent bunch of people on the committee of Ravic, I would assume. They've assessed it. It's not like they looked at it once and said, categoric no. They've reassessed it and looked at it again and still don't think that it's necessary.
But Cameron, his team are saying that that is not... I agree with Katie, but his team are trying to say otherwise, that there is a formal review that he feels like he has that was unfairly kicked down the line. Is that true?
Yeah, they're alleging that the formal review hasn't happened for five odd years. He was already, when he stopped being a working member of the royal family, I think it was number 2 in terms of threat level, just below Queen Elizabeth II because of Afghanistan and because he was one of the most famous members of the royal family, etc. And now because he is one of the most unpopular members of the royal family, he needs another review into security. And that hasn't taken place as far as we're aware.
Katie, I know that this is kind of petty to say, but I really get frustrated by the Afghanistan argument when we see so many veterans that are homeless on the streets of Skid Row. Yes, you're the king's son, but stop throwing it out there that you're a veteran because we don't treat our veterans the way we should anyway. Why should you get special treatment because you were a veteran when people that really have sacrificed so much are living on street corners and in sleeping bags?
You might also argue the point that, Harry identified killing a certain number of Taliban in his book and therefore perhaps increased his his risk of being a target. I mean, I don't think that was the most sensible thing he could have done either. But to your point about the veterans, I suppose Harry would say, well, he is trying to shine the spotlight on them. We don't treat our veterans the way we should. Harry's done more, I think, to change things in this country probably than anyone else. And the great tragedy in all of this is that that's not what we're discussing around this panel. That's not the topic of conversation. The topic of conversation is why he's not getting his security.
Yeah, no, I agree there. Cameron, before we move on, I apologize to keep going here, but the story in the Daily Mail where there is this post-Megxit, post-Sandringham Summit agreement where as long as they come to the UK and only focus on charity and don't pursue commercial ventures, things are fine. Are you buying that narrative that things are hunky-dory as long as they don't come over and try to shill jam? Or do you think that there is no new agreement? Things are the way they are and they'll remain that way until there's some real therapeutic something that happens?
I don't think that there's been any change to the formal agreement since the Sandringham summit. I also think that Harry and Meghan have two very different objectives. I think Harry misses, to be honest, doing all the charity work, which is why he's coming back over and why he came in September solo. Meghan clearly is pursuing business ventures and trying to make it a successful business and make money out of it. Whether the two are compatible, I think they're probably wise to keep the two things separate. But I just don't see what the end game of this is, because it looks very... Meghan was criticised, wasn't she, a few months ago, that she was kind of using her title, not using her titles in the branding, but using the fame she gets from being married to Prince Harry and being the Duchess of Sussex to amplify her brand a bit more, and therefore making it having a commercial advantage, really, by being a member of the royal family, which I think the late Queen didn't allow her to do in 2020.
Yeah, well, Katie,
No, I mean,
anytime she launches something, it's the Duchess of Sussex.
Of course it is. I mean, they wouldn't be where they are without that royal branding. But, this sort of understanding that they are allowed to commercialise it and just not in the UK. The Queen never said you can go ahead and commercialise it here or America or anywhere else.
Did Fergie not teach us anything?
No.
Did Fergie not teach us anything?
The agreement was you can go and do what you want, but you don't bring the name of the royal family into disrepute. Well, I mean, which is exactly what they've done.
What was your response to seeing them in Australia and watching Meghan embracing victims of a terror plot and then those outfits being available on an app? Did you think about Queen Elizabeth when that happened? Are you thinking this is exactly what they were fearful of when they sat down and said, commercializing the royal family, it could jeopardize the brand?
Yeah, and I think it echoed that accusation that they often face, which is that they are tone deaf. They don't think things through. They don't anticipate how something is going to land. I remember speaking to an aide who worked with them quite a while ago, who said there was, the intentions were good, but it was a very scattergun approach. And before one thing had been executed, they were on to the next thing, never having fully formed a plan. And I think you can date that back to the announcement that they made that they were leaving the royal family, that they were standing down as working royals. That hadn't been approved by Buckingham Palace. It hadn't really been thought through. And to be honest, ever since then, I think they've been on the back foot. They've never just been ahead of it with a well thought out plan. So no, I mean, that landed really badly.
Do you have a response before we talk about the happy
To
words?
be honest, I think it's I do agree that it was a really awful look that she was hugging victims of a terror attack and then the clothes were appearing online.
Just looks so cheap and crass, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm surprised she wasn't advised against that, actually. And if she was advised against it, she chose to pursue it anyway.
Well, they ripped the pictures down shortly after, but the damage was done. I mean, that's just one of those things that I don't know if I'll ever forget or forgive.
If there could have been a possibility where Meghan wasn't aware that was happening and whoever is dealing with her PR and her commercial side of things was just not thinking and just made a very stupid error, which is why they were taken down so quickly.
But there have been so many sorry, Kinsey, but there have been so many stupid errors. When she came over to Geneva to give the talk about the dangers of the internet and child safety, and hours before she's posted a picture of Lily in her dressing room. And this is a couple who have said they will do everything they can to protect the privacy of their children. I mean, apparently that's why they left Britain, because they didn't feel their children would be safe here.
And but taking pictures with other people's children while they were in Australia and having no problem posting pictures of other people's children. If you were if your cause is that the internet is not safe for children, then don't post pictures with any children online.
Absolutely.
And we're going to see in the next few days pictures of hairy balloon animals, children. I mean, their actions don't match. But, talking about their actions don't match their words. Talking about great advisors, though, Prince William on the New Heights podcast, I sat back and thought, this was a really clever collaboration. And Prince William and Catherine's team are superior. They are stellar. They know exactly what they're doing. They're listening to their advisors, but they also have a very strong team around them. He made the joke that his father hated football. That made me nervous. I wondered if King Charles hated that. But I loved watching the way that he tried to meet the Kelsey brothers when it came to their enthusiasm and their energy, but he still remained dignified. So you saw him kind of perk up, but he didn't make a fool of himself to meet them where they were at, which Harry does all the time if you think about some of his little late night.
James Corden.
Yes. James Corden, Stephen Colbert. And so I noticed that difference. But pretty brilliant to have Prince William on the New Heights podcast the same day as Travis and Taylor's wedding. Talk to me about that from your point of view.
Well, that's the thing, the timing, the fact that it was on the day of Travis and Taylor's wedding. And of course, Prince William went to Taylor Swift's concert, the Eras Tour, with George and Charlotte.
Shake It Off, the Shake It Off dance.
Yeah, and Travis as well, of course, the Shake It Off dance. So it was all over social media as well. So they clearly had some kind of level of personal, team about them. And I think it just shows Prince William in a really personal light. He can do the constitutional stuff, he can be the future king, he can do the very serious charity engagements, but he can also appear on a very successful podcast across the pond, appear relaxed, banter about football, talk about the World Cup, champion the England team, and little tidbits about the wedding as well, which I believe reportedly he was invited to. I don't think him and Princess turned up.
Well, I do wonder if that's maybe why the podcast went out on that day, because for whatever reason they couldn't be there. We know they had this private dinner beforehand where apparently Catherine met Taylor for the first time. But I wonder if that was just planned so that although they weren't at the wedding, it didn't look like a snub, did it? It didn't look like, we're too busy to come across to New York for your wedding, because actually here I am on the podcast. So I think, sometimes we pass these things off as coincidence, but I can't remember which one of you made the point about them having a brilliant team, but they do. And as well as having a brilliant team, they listen to those advisors. And I agree with you. I think Prince William has sort of never been more real, relatable, and also more royal. And as I'm watching that podcast and thinking, gosh, we could be likening you to a celebrity, which the late Queen Elizabeth considered almost a dirty word. There is still a distinction, I feel, very much between William and Catherine as royals and celebrities. That line is blurred for Harry and Meghan now, but there is still that distinction with William and Catherine, and I think it's a really important one.
Well, and I think it's because William and Catherine do listen to their advisors. William and Catherine's advisors would have never allowed Meghan Markle to go on the Ellen DeGeneres show sucking a baby bottle and squatting, and some of the Prince Harry peeing in a stranger's house in Beverly Hills. They would have been like, absolutely not. Talk to me about this private meeting. Hypothetically, do you think that Catherine would be excited to meet Taylor Swift, knowing how much her children love Taylor Swift? Because it was apparently the first time Catherine was meeting Taylor Swift, although Prince William has this established relationship with
Well,
Swift.
Prince William met Taylor, if I'm not wrong, back in 2023 when she was performing at Kensington Palace. It was the Winter Whites Gala, and I was there for that engagement.
Was it 2023 or 2013?
Oh, was it
I think it was 2013.
2013.
Yeah, because there was a few more hairs on his head in those.
So 2013. So it's a long established friendship. But I was there that night watching William get up with Bon Jovi and Taylor and having a good old song. And that was the night the friendship was formed. And of course, it has continued. And we know that Princess Charlotte is an avid Swiftie. And so I expect that Catherine was probably really quite excited to meet Taylor, because she will have heard non-stop about Taylor from Charlotte and probably William as well. So it feels very organic and authentic, this sort of little friendship that's sprung up.
It really does.
It does.
And talk to me about the wedding. It is my understanding that they were invited. it would have reflected poorly on Prince William, perhaps, if he flew to the United States for a Hollywood wedding and they hadn't seen him yet at a football game. Do you think maybe that's, I mean, it's just a trek also. It doesn't feel beneath them, but I think that Katie's right, that this was, thank you for the invite. Here's a solution. We can't come, but we'd like to do this instead. To show their love and respect for Taylor and Travis without having to make that trek over to the United States.
Yeah, and Casey, I hadn't heard that theory before, but I think that's probably right, actually, the fact that it was so well timed, because it would have been a bad look if Prince William had flown over to New York to attend a wedding and, as you say, not supported the England team, who he says he supports so much, and clearly he does.
And he says he's going to. He said on that podcast.
He'll be there for
So
the
he
final.
will be, yeah. So he said on the podcast that he absolutely 100%, if England are in the final, he will definitely be there. The other point to make, of course, that he's future king. President Trump absolutely adores him and the Princess of Wales. And again, I don't think they would have wanted to risk snubbing President Trump by going to a wedding of Taylor Swift and with a lot of Hollywood people who we know don't like President Trump very much, and then flying back without actually seeing him.
And you wonder if it also just takes a little bit of that magic off of the royal brand. I just think this was a very neat, elegant solution because we've seen how wrong it goes with Harry and Meghan when you try and mix, mingle and become too celebrity. You know, the royals have to be in a different genre to that. And of course he's going to have these celebrity friendships, but I think it was good advice that was taken, and the podcast was a neat solution.
And it's my understanding that they were invited to the 250-year celebration, and sorry we can't come, we're at Taylor and Travis's wedding, would have not gone over well in the House of Trump. They would have been quite hostile. This is not necessarily a positive piece. Why William will have to give up privacy at Forest Lodge when he becomes king. Royal author Christopher Wilson reveals just how naive the prince's dream of his forever home is. I thought that this was unfortunate and very cynical. Katie, why are we already talking about King Charles being deceased and where Prince William will live? Do you sometimes think that the Princess of Wales and Prince William are so pristine that there are people out there just looking for trouble? How can we develop some negative storyline or stir the pot because these two are following the rules? Maybe they think they're a little boring, so they're just going to stir the pot.
Well,
I don't know.
I'm just going to, I feel I've been so cynical on Harry and Meghan. I'm just going to come away from being cynical and say I think that the general conversation when it comes to royals, and we know this better than most, is we are thinking about the future, as are they. We are thinking about what the future of the monarchy looks like. And I think we are all agreed when we look at trooping and we see the Waleses up there, we know that they are the future of the royal family. And I think inevitably that opens up discussions. Well, where will they live? What sort of king and queen are they going to be? And I think these are all legitimate conversations to have. I think to a degree, Kensington Palace have almost held themselves hostage to this because when they announced that they were moving into Forest Lodge, they billed it as their forever home. Now, I have been doing this job long enough and I know I'm showing my age, but I remember when we were told that Kensington Palace Apartment 1A was going to be their forever home. Oh. And by the way, as taxpayers, we footed a huge bill for that renovation. Now, as an aside, 1A has not been lived in for many years. Anna is their forever home. We know that they love living below the radar. Windsor works. George is going to Eton. And I think there are many valid reasons why they want it to be their forever home. I think they're very happy there. But of course, there is this expectation that as and when William is king, and we do not want that day to come any sooner than is the natural order of things. We wish the king a very long, healthy, happy life. Where will he live? Can we have a king living in Forest Lodge, or does he need to be at Windsor Castle? We know it won't be Buckingham Palace, but I think it does throw up these conversations. I'm not sure I agree with Christopher in his essay. I think we will see in a King William do things differently. I think we will see more of the palaces opened up and visited by members of the public, both here and internationally. And I think that will be a positive step for the royal family.
Isn't it possible to have more than one forever home, though? Yeah. I think there's a situation, I think the first thing I'm actually going to say is the king, although he's undergoing cancer treatments, he is still very much playing on with a lot of engagements at the moment, and he's doing pretty well from the last time I saw him.
They have like 30 this week. They have 30. They're saying that there's really no... People are surprised that Harry's team is still briefing that there will be a meeting because the Royals have such a packed schedule. So to your point, over 30 engagements prepared for this week.
The king not slowing down. But I think I can see a situation where, when William does eventually become king, that he will keep Forest Lodge as his forever home on the Windsor estate. It's modest compared to Windsor Castle. He's still going to have Windsor Castle and another property on the Windsor estate as his office. But equally, if he needs to be in London, then you've already got, as you say, Casey, apartment 1A readily available for him to use. The last time the family stayed there was the night before Trooping the Colour just last month. So they do use it sporadically on certain occasions. I suspect when William does become king and he is required to be in London more often, he will stay in Kensington Palace far more often. Clarence House, there's a big question mark, as discussed in that piece. What will happen to that? Perhaps they'll move into there. As you say, Casey, Buckingham Palace clearly off the table, but I think you can probably have both properties. I don't think the public actually care too much if the Waleses decide to stay in Forest Lodge and give their children the privacy they need to grow up as normal lives as possible. So I just don't see it being an issue. This Buckingham Palace, Kensington Palace, Windsor Castle, they're all still going to be massive tourist attractions. Buckingham Palace still going to be the focal point and the HQ of the British monarchy, with the offices and the big set pieces such as Trooping the Colour and balcony appearances. It's just going to be a slightly different way of doing the monarchy, which William has hinted at already.
Right. I mean, I like the idea of him living in Windsor Castle. Is the idea of him living in Windsor Castle prior to the death of King Charles inappropriate, considering the fact that Queen Elizabeth was the last person to live there? Would he be like skipping a step? Him living in a castle like that, would that look bad?
I think William is mindful of royal residences, of the duchy. I mean, we've seen that in so many ways just recently with the tax bill and opening up more duchy land to welfare housing, all of those sorts of things. I wonder if there is a bit of him that feels that he wants to be the first king in British history not to live in a castle, because he is actually future-proofing the monarchy so that it doesn't die out with him. I mean, we're not in his head, we don't know, but as Cameron says, this is a forward-looking future monarch. This is a man who's acutely aware that things have to move. They do. If the monarchy doesn't evolve and change, if it becomes stagnant, that breeds apathy, and that's disastrous for the monarchy. So, I think it's possible that he may not live at Windsor Castle. It was his grandmother's favourite home. He's certainly not going to live there while Charles is still monarch. But I think these are things that are clearly not just being discussed by commentators, but will be being discussed within the family too.
And to also be well aware that the sovereign grant has bloated in the last 3 years. I think it's, the price that for taxpayers, I know it's slightly more complicated than that, but to simplify it, the price of taxpayers has gone up astronomically. And I think Prince William will be well aware of that. And I suspect there could be a possibility that he'll start making cuts when he does become monarch, especially if he is staying in Forest Lodge and not needing so many staff to run Windsor Castle on a full-time basis and Buckingham Palace on a full-time basis in terms of a living accommodation.
But to Katie's point earlier, we really have seen a backbone from him. So if he decides Forest Lodge is where he's going to stay, I can see him being like, no, this is just the way it is. Christopher Wilson and everybody else that has something negative to say about it can shove it where. He just kind of is fearless in a way. I think we've seen from him.
Well, I think he will. And as long as the public support him, which they appear to be doing, then I think he'll continue with the trajectory he's on.
Well, speaking of fearless, Katie, I thought of you several times while reading this story about Catherine doing the Three Peaks Challenge.
Yes, amazing,
because you've raised money for the Royal Marsden.
I did, and you sponsored me.
I did.
Thank you.
And I'll do it again if you ever do that again.
I'm never doing a half marathon again. Sorry, I'm just saying that. I'll do the Peaks. I'm not doing another half marathon.
Well, thank you for doing it, because you did raise awareness for an incredible cause. And here we have the Princess of Wales with the Three Peaks Challenge, raising money for the same cause, getting emotional in her video where she described why she was doing it. And we got to see the sweetest photos of the children meeting her during the finale, during the climax, with her mom and dad, her brother, the dog. I've never seen pictures that made me as emotional as these did. I
know, I was the same. It sort of makes your hair stand on end, and it was just, it was just love. It was just love. And you see why Catherine is a picture of health and radiance, because she's surrounded by love. She has chosen not to go down the route of drama and controversy and resentment. She has chosen love. She was dealt a very unfortunate card. I mean, who would have thought this beautiful young mother in her 40s would be struck down by cancer? You know, I think it was shocking to everybody, but she has turned something shocking and potentially awful into a life-changing moment. And you look at those photographs and you see the backbone to her. It's her husband. I mean, there's so much in that embrace. It's those 3 little children who so desperately need her. I mean, at one point, you can see Charlotte is so overwhelmed with emotion. She's hiding from the camera because she's crying.
Yeah.
And Michael and Carol, the sort of pillars of Kate's life, Catherine's life, and Catherine and William's life. And you think, okay, you know, they've overcome 2 of the worst years of their life, but they are moving forwards with positivity and love and light. And I think everyone can learn a lot from that.
And the Middleton family is so normal in terms of providing that love and support of a normal family. And I think it was really beautiful, actually, that we saw that side of the family, which we don't really see too often, on a photograph with William and the 3 children. And actually, my favourite was Isla, the dog, James's dog.
So sweet.
It's so sweet. And actually, do you know, it wasn't the post from Kensington Palace that made me emotional. It was the post from James Middleton, her brother, because in the caption of the photograph of the 2 of them embracing, he said, 2 years ago, I told you we will climb this mountain together. This was after Catherine announced her cancer diagnosis and was going through treatment. And now we finally have. And just talking about that full circle moment that she is well, she can do the 3 Peaks Challenge, she can raise awareness of the Royal Marsden and raise money for the charity, and even along the way, let's sponsor this other little boy as well in a wheelchair who's doing a similar challenge. You know, it was just such a beautiful moment, and I think it really showed the true character of the Princess of Wales as future Queen.
Oh, absolutely. Katie, what does it tell you about Catherine that, because you're talking about this difficult experience, which you can attest to because you dealt with something similar, and that is scary. Cancer is scary. But on top of Catherine's cancer, she dealt with a lot of trolling online. What was the reporting? What were you hearing at the time about the Wales family, their response to that? Were they capable of ignoring the nasty rumors? Were they capable of, you know, rising above, or were there ever moments of weakness where it really hurt them?
I think, listen, one thing that we've learned in all of this is that they are just human. As much as we put them on a pedestal and they are role models and international icons, they are just human. And never more have you seen that naked humanity and humanness than in this journey, in those pictures, her as a sister, her as a daughter. And I think those rumours, which were wild, and I remember, you know, sitting with you, Kinsey, and we were saying, we're not going here. We're not going to give air to these disgusting conspiracy theories. Whatever she has, and she is dealing with it as a private person, and she needs to be given that time and space. And they did respond in their own way. I suppose the Mother's Day photograph was their way of responding to try and show the world that all was well. And of course, we all know how terribly that backfired, unfortunately for them. She did it in her own way by sharing the news, not in a press statement, but in a very emotional video. Videos that have continued since then. You know, the power of nature that she shared with us, her healing journey, the time with her family. I feel that she has very generously and graciously allowed us a glimpse into, without a doubt, the hardest period of her life, because anyone that has gone through a cancer diagnosis knows that it is life-changing. And if you can come out stronger from it and use the platform that she has to spread awareness, to raise money for the Royal Marsden, to spread the word about the importance of holistic treatment alongside conventional treatment, if you can share that message, you will save lives. So she's doing very powerful work, and I applaud her for it, and I admire her for it.
I know Cameron agrees.
I do. Yeah, I couldn't put it better myself.
Can I ask you, Cameron, how cute, you don't have to say it's cute because you're a boy, but I just thought it was so cute, the picture where Prince George is slightly behind Prince William and they have the exact same pose where their hands are in their pockets. I mean, Prince William is raising a Prince William 2.0, and I suspect, everybody talks about how we've got to get the younger generation excited about the monarchy. Oh, they're on the decline. The younger generation doesn't care about the monarchy. Just give Prince George 2 more years, and I think he's going to be a little cover boy. Like, I remember buying teen magazines with Prince William on the cover. I think that Prince George is going to be the second coming.
Do you know what? I think it's only a couple of years before we have screaming teenagers looking up at George. He's almost as tall as his mother. I think the Prince and Princess of Wales will be very aware of what a young Prince William and Prince Harry had to go through. So I don't think that sort of thing is going to happen until he turns 18 and until he's finished Eton College at the very least.
Oh, you
or
think
maybe
that they'll
university.
protect him to ensure it doesn't?
Yeah, I absolutely think he'll be left alone at Eton College to go to school and have as normal a life as possible, occasionally appearing for trooping as he does now. But I think Eton's going to prepare him properly because as well as all the academic work, they have a huge emphasis on giving back to the community and charity work and volunteering and things like that and making a difference to the local community. So, he's getting the right groundwork. So when he does turn 18, he does become an adult and perhaps start doing a little bit more in terms of media or giving out statements, then we'll see more. But I think let's leave an almost 13-year-old boy alone to get on with his childhood.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I just remember being my YM magazine cover with a 15-year-old Prince William on the cover, and you could buy Bop magazines, and there would be Jonathan Taylor Thomas, Devon Sawa, and Prince William, which I'm aging myself there. But
I think he'll still be on the front cover.
Yeah.
But I just don't think it would be. I think it would be a photograph taken in an official capacity. I don't think there would be a situation where Kensington Palace would offer him up to be a cover boy and do an interview.
No. And Katie, I don't even think that they offered up. Remember that Vanity Fair that Prince William was in a Vanity. There was a spread that was, and it was Prince William, and he looked like he was in his Eton uniform. But I don't think that they necessarily offered Prince William up, right? I do think
no, they didn't. And you have to remember when William was at Eton, Harry joined soon after, Diana had just died.
And there were new rules really in place.
There were very much new rules and a new layer of protection around the schoolboy princes, a protection that continued until after Prince William graduated. It was really only after St Andrews that sort of protective bubble popped. And I completely agree, Cameron. I think they will make sure that George is absolutely protected and able to enjoy a normal school life, a student life, maybe even military training. We don't know which way that's going to go. But what they've shown, I think, in all of this is that they are very mindful of the public appetite. What they've done is they've achieved almost the impossible of managing to just find a balance and to give the public and the media enough to keep them happy, but without compromising their 3 children's childhood, which William and Catherine want to be as normal and carefree as possible, and they do. And when they'll be heading off, if they're not there already, to Norfolk for the summer, and they'll be sailing and walking around the beaches and running over the dunes at Holkham and having the most wonderful, rustic, gorgeous summer holiday. And they won't be bothered. And that's how it should be.
Outdoorsy. I think a big challenge for Kensington Palace is going to be something which William and Harry did not have to deal with, and that is social media and mobile phones. And I think when George, Charlotte and Louis get to the age where they are going to pubs and bars and nightclubs, that's going to be a huge issue because it only takes one person on a mobile phone and a random member of the public to then put an image or a compromising video on social media and it goes viral. There's nothing Kensington Palace really can do to stop that. We wouldn't publish it as journalists with integrity, but that's not stopping the public appetite for it. And social media companies, I think, are going to have a role, don't want to touch it. And, I think there's going to be some pretty heated discussions over the next few years between the royal households and big social media companies about those kind of images going viral.
And it was an American outlet, TMZ, that posted the picture of Catherine during the Where is Kate chaos. And I remember just being so frustrated that they had the audacity to do that. Cameron, what are you covering this week? Because I did see that there's a long list of royal engagements engagement. So what can we look forward to from the working royals this week?
The working royals this week. Well, the king has been keeping out of it all and has been doing an engagement today at the Royal Tank Regiment in Dorset. We've seen pictures of him already riding a tank, which is pretty fun. He's keeping calm and carrying on. The Princess of Wales today also doing an engagement to do with early childhood development. So she's in London. I think later on in the week, Prince William is also doing something. Let's see if I can remember off the top of my head. I can't remember, but he's also doing engagements too.
Okay, well, we will be watching GB News religiously. And Katie, tell me about Royals Uncensored. When can we watch this week? And any clue? I imagine you might be talking about Prince Harry this week.
I think we'll be talking about Prince Harry. We absolutely will. That'll be going out on Thursday on YouTube, and we'll be going out on Channel 5 on Saturday.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Exciting.
Having a lot of fun on the show. Have both of you on it, and love the debate and the conversation. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, Katie Nicholl, Cameron Walker, thank you so much for spending time with me today. Agree with us, disagree with us. Let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. Thanks for watching. I'm Kinsey Schofield. Bye.